Well, I enjoyed it. You know, the first time I did it, it was with Reagan. I'm standing backstage.
For over 4 decades, America laughed with him, admired him, but never really knew him. Jay Leno, a television icon, a man who lived a life most could only dream of. But behind the bright lights, beyond the cameras, and far from the applause, he had another world. A world that shaped him as much as the stage ever could. In this video, we're going to share the full story of Jay Leno's 2 lives. Let's dive in. The beginning. Jay was born in 1950 in New Rochelle, New York. His father, Angelo, sold insurance. His mother, Catherine, was Scottish, a quiet and practical woman. The family was simple, hardworking, and focused on values over wealth. Jay grew up in Andover, Massachusetts, in a small house with an old garage. The same garage that would one day shape his life. But at that time, he was just a boy, unaware of how much that space would define him. For Jay, school was often a challenge, because even as a child, he loved humor. He discovered that making people laugh gave him the same satisfaction he felt fixing a car, a feeling of control, of understanding. And by high school, he was balancing books, wrenches, and jokes, often all at once. After graduation, he went to Emerson College in Boston. He studied speech therapy, but his heart was already divided between comedy and machines. And then something happened, something that matched his passion and prepared him for what was coming next. In the dorms, he founded the school's first comedy club, a place where Jay could finally do what he loved. By day, he worked at a garage. By night, he performed in bars. 2 worlds that rarely met, yet he managed both. As Boston's comedy scene grew, Jay realized these 2 lives were only just beginning. Because soon, he would have to face a city that demanded everything but gave nothing in return. The struggling phase. Boston in the 1970s was a city full of opportunity and also full of challenges. Jay Leno had talent, but talent alone didn't pay the bills. He was working day and night just to keep himself moving forward. And it wasn't easy. When he worked at a garage, he would be covered in grease, sweat dripping, hands blackened with oil. While on comedy stages at night, he hoped to make people laugh. He knew that if he could survive these nights, he could survive anything. Money was tight. Rent, food, and gas were constant worries for Leno. Every paycheck from the garage went to survival. His friends warned him to focus on something safer, something stable. But for him, comedy was like breathing, and cars were like oxygen. He couldn't let either go. And deep down, Jay knew something was waiting for him beyond Boston. A bigger stage, a bigger city, a bigger risk. He could almost feel it, the moment when all these unseen struggles would finally pay off. And when that moment came, it truly changed everything for Leno. The big break. By the late 1970s, Boston had given Jay everything it could, but the real test was waiting in New York City. In 1976, with a few dollars saved and a box of handwritten jokes, Jay packed his car and drove straight to Manhattan. Yes, a place that every young comedian feared and dreamed of at the same time. New York's comedy scene was brutal. The comic strip on 2nd Avenue, Catch a Rising Star on 77th Street. These were the rooms where legends were born and careers were crushed. Jay stood in line with dozens of comedians every night, each hoping for 3 minutes on stage. 3 minutes that could change a life or prove it was going nowhere. Jay's first nights were rough. Crowds were sharp, unforgiving, always ready to boo. But something started happening. His timing was precise, his delivery clean, and his discipline was evident. Slowly, club managers began remembering his name. He wasn't the loudest or flashiest comedian, but he was consistent. And in New York, consistency was rare. And then it happened. One night in 1977 at Catch a Rising Star, a booker for The Tonight Show walked in. Nobody knew he was there. Nobody knew he was watching. Jay performed the same way he always did, focused, steady, not missing a beat. The next morning, he got a call that didn't feel real. He was invited to perform on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, the biggest stage in America, a place where a single joke could launch a career. Jay understood what this meant, but he didn't let it shake him. He didn't celebrate. He didn't slow down. He went straight to work, rewriting every joke, rehearsing every punchline. He knew this wasn't just a performance, it was a test. And on March 2nd, 1977, when Jay stepped onto Carson's stage for the first time, The studio lights hit him harder than anything he had ever felt. The audience waited. Carson watched closely. Jay delivered everything he'd been preparing for years. Clean jokes, sharp timing, real confidence. And when Carson nodded in approval, Jay knew his life had changed. That nod wasn't just a reaction. It was a door opening, a door that had been locked for years. And now that Jay was inside, the next chapter was coming fast. A chapter that would push him into a life he never expected. The double life. By the late 1980s, Jay Leno was no longer just another comedian in New York. He was becoming a regular guest on The Tonight Show, filling in for Johnny Carson, touring non-stop, and building a name that people across America now recognized. But as his fame grew, something else grew with it. The pressure of living two lives at once. On TV, Jay looked calm, sharp, always ready with a joke. But once the cameras went off, he drove straight to his garage. That old habit never left him. While others celebrated success with parties and late-night dinners, Jay spent his nights under the hood of a car, covered in grease, fixing engines the same way he did before anyone knew his name. People inside NBC often said he was the hardest worker they had ever seen. He was doing guest spots, writing new material, and filling in for Carson, sometimes on very short notice. Yet even after long studio days, he still went home, changed his clothes, and worked on cars until past midnight. Comedy kept him alive, but the garage kept him grounded. As the years passed, the gap between these two worlds grew wider. One world was bright, polished, and full of expectations. The other was quiet, dirty, and familiar. Jay needed both, but handling both meant no rest, no pause, no room for mistakes. And then came 1992, the year NBC had to choose Carson's successor. David Letterman on one side, Jay Leno on the other side. Two giants, two futures. The decision would split the industry, stir years of debate, and change late-night TV forever. Jay didn't know it yet, but his double life was about to collide with the biggest moment of his career. The moment that would push everything he built into a storm he couldn't avoid. Chasing new heights. When Jay was selected as the official host of The Tonight Show, he didn't know what the next chapter of his life would look like. He knew only one thing. He had to show up, work hard, and respect the stage that had made legends. And then he did the impossible. For over 20 years, Jay ran the biggest late-night show in America. Night after night, joke after joke, he kept the whole country awake. Presidents came, movie stars came, musicians, athletes, writers, even people who had never been on TV before. They all sat across from him. But it wasn't just the show. With the fame came magazines, headlines, tours, and events. He became a regular face in places like the Kennedy Center, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and every major comedy club from LA to New York. His name wasn't just a name anymore, it was a brand. And then came the thing that had been with him since he was a kid, his second love, cars. Jay didn't hide it, he built it. A full garage, a studio, a whole world. And soon millions of people watched him talk about engines, old classics, and wild builds on his own show, Jay Leno's Garage. The jokes never stopped. The stories never stopped, and neither did he. Year after year, Jay lived a full life, the kind of life he once imagined while riding his small bike through his childhood streets, dreaming about stages he had never seen. But now, that peak of late-night fame has passed. The cameras aren't rolling the same way, and people are starting to ask, where is Jay? What is he doing now, and what comes next? Honestly, the answer is still unfolding. Despite the accidents, the injuries, the scares, Jay is still moving, still performing, still filming car videos, still showing that age can slow the body but not the fire. And maybe something new is coming. A return to more stand-up comedy, a new season of his car show, maybe even a simple personal project he's never talked about. Because even at 75, Jay Leno is still rolling. And somehow, in all of it, he's never lost the boy who once dreamed big in a small garage. So here we are, a man who started with nothing and reached heights that very few ever do. And even now, he's still moving, still creating, still chasing what he loves. But here's the real question, the one only time will answer. After everything, what does a man do when he's already lived the dream he once thought was impossible? Drop your thoughts about this in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, ensure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Until then, see ya.